Hello and welcome to Stocks, Stories and Skills. HDFC Financial Services, a subsidiary of HDFC Bank, is in the market where the corporate-backed NBFCs like Jio Financial, Bajaj Finance, Poonawalla FinCorp, Pyramid are ruling the roost. I have got three charts for you to decode this story for you. First is the size and scale. Just how big is HDB when compared with Bajaj Finance and Jio Financial? Second, business model and revenue mix. What makes their lending engine tick? Future business segment for HDB to scale up in the market. And finally, risk in HDB's business model. तीन दावेदार और एक विनर, आप किस पे दाव लगाएंगे? चलो आंकड़े और तथ्यों के आधार पर समझते हैं कौन है असली दावेदार। Is HDB the next Bajaj Finance? चलिए ये समझते हैं इस चार्ट से। So पहला, I have this vintage and the management. Now Bajaj Finance is almost 4-decade-old company, and to tell you the history, initially till 2007, Bajaj Finance was a monoline two-wheeler, finance company, mainly financing, the Bajaj scooters. Now post 2007, the Rahul Bajaj, Nanu Pamnani, he's a ex, city banker, India city head, and Rajiv Jain. They brought in Rajiv Jain. Rajiv was in AIG and G Capital. So these three gentlemen, they created a new business model for Bajaj Finance, and we saw from 2007 to 2010. Bajaj Finance completely turning around. And the next phase, now we have, Sanjeev Bajaj in saddle. Rajiv Jain has moved up, and the MD CEO is Anup Saha. So Bajaj is now, let's say, its third phase, where, it's using digital and AI, to capture the market share. अगर HDB देखें तो it's a 17-year-old company. HDB is not a newbie here. 17 साल से they are building a business model, and they have Ramesh Ganeshan as CEO since 2012. And HDB is the only finance company here which is backed by institution, the HDFC bank. We have Jio Financial. Jio Financial is relatively a new company. 2.5 साल ही हुए हैं, तो बहुत ज़्यादा इनका विंटेज नहीं है. एंड यहाँ पर एक केवी कामत, द एक्स ICICI chairman and the MD CEO, and Hitesh Kumar Setia, he has also come from ICICI. So Kamath and Hitesh, or the ICICI team, they are building Jio Financials. Now let's come to AUM. And AUM is very important for banking and the NBFC businesses, and I'll tell you why. So AUM is a very critical metric for NBFCs because it reflects the total value of loan and financial asset which they manage. And AUM can include the loan disbursed and still active in the books. Second, loan sold but still serviced, like securitization and all. And third is the managed portfolio, that might not sit on its balance sheet, but their portfolio, or they are managing it. So if you see the AUM, Bajaj has got a AUM of 4 lakh plus crore. HDB is 1 lakh crore, and Jio Financial is around 10,000 crores. So Jio has a long way to go, but if you see these two, HDFC is inching forward. 1 lakh crore. Today it is 1/4, and let's say in the next 3-5 years, this will move very fast, because for Bajaj to now grow with 4 lakh will be very challenging. Net interest income. Now again, net interest income is a very important tool, and I'll tell you why. Net interest income is the difference between the interest earned on loans and the interest paid on borrowings. So it reflects the core profitability from lending operations. For banks and NBFCs, NII, which is net interest income, is a crucial metric as it indicates how efficiently they manage their interest spread and is a key driver of earnings and valuation. So यहाँ हमने इंटरेस्ट इनकम इसलिए लिया है बिकॉज ये कोर इनकम है किसी भी एनबीएफसी और बैंक की, और यहां पर वो सबसे ज्यादा पैसा कमाते हैं. बजाज फाइनेंस का नेट इंटरेस्ट इनकम है 36,393 करोड़. HDB is around 7,400 crore and Jio Financial is around 1,000 crore. So Jio is way below. So it has a long way to go. HDFC has much better financial than Jio Financials. So if you're taking a call between Jio and HDB, I suggest look at these parameters. They are way ahead of Jio. Now let's come to the net profit. 16,000 crore for Bajaj Finance, 2,000 crore for HDB and 1,613 crore for Jio, but it also includes other income because their core business is yet to start. ROE, return on equity, is 19 to 20%, is 11 to 14, and is 1 to 2%. Very low. Again, since they are starting it, we can't compare. And the NIMs is 9 to 10% here, 7 to 8%. Again, since they are very new, so it's not applicable. But look at Bajaj and the HDB. 11 to 14%, here 20%, 7 to 8%, 9 to 10%. So HDB is financially, if you look at, they show a very robust numbers. So if you ask me, is HDB the next Bajaj Finance? So I would say HDB is where Bajaj was about 10-12 years ago in terms of AUM and net profits. Second, lower NIM and ROE. So HDB has lower NIM and ROE as you have seen in the chart, and it's more conservative model, and they're also slower on digital pivot. So we have to see how they come out with their digital offerings going forward. So this is a chart of loan mix. So if you see this one, this is Bajaj Finance, very diversified. We'll come to that. HDB, they are into 2-3 main segments. Jio is just starting it, so we have given the segment, but scale is missing. So let's come to the Bajaj part. So mortgages, is 31% share in their loan portfolio. If you see urban B2C loan, 21%. If you see SME lending is 12%. Another big one, if you see, let's say 6.7, commercial vehicle loan against property 6.1, two-wheeler, so gold loans. So it's a very diversified portfolio which the Bajaj has built. Now coming to HDB, their biggest segment is the enterprise lending which they do. It's almost 40%, and then 37% is asset financing, and if you see consumer finance is around 22 or 23%. If you and 75% of their book is secured, and the balance is unsecured. As you know, secured you get less, you earn less margins, where unsecured you get higher margins. So this model is slightly conservative, but a very robust model. Reliance or Jio is building a model where they want to give term loan, working capital loan, vendor financing, loan against here, loan against mutual fund. This is very new, and this is a segment which has a lot of promise. Loan against property and home loan and all that. So currently the breakup is not available. I have just given a false breakup, but they have a lot of segment, but they are still building it. Now this is the final chart where I am going to discuss the 5 big risks in HDFC Financial. And let's start with the first one, is the high credit risk. Default from volatile segment can impact their asset quality. So number one big risk is the high credit risk. If you analyze HDB's book, a significant share of HDB's loan book is exposed to MSMEs and self-employed borrowers. These segments are more vulnerable to income shocks, making the business susceptible to higher credit cost and asset quality deterioration, especially during downturns. Now, second big risk which I see is the liability challenge. Higher funding cost always impacts profitability. And just to bring you a background, if you see HDFC Limited, one of the biggest NBFCs in India, and after a point of time, it's very difficult to raise a low cost deposit and compete with banks in the market. So NBFCs के लिए एक point के बाद अगर scale बढ़ जाता है, so the biggest challenge come from the liability side. Currently, if you look at HDB's average cost of borrowing is around 7.9%, close to 8%, which is higher than top peers. And if you compare with the peer group, they're around 7.1 to 7.4%. So despite getting a higher AAA rating, HDB's cost of borrowing is very high. And as NBFC, HDB does not have access to low cost deposits like banks, current account and saving accounts. So it relies on borrowing from banks and also capital markets, often at a higher rates. So in a tight liquidity scenario or rising interest rate environment, this could compress their net interest margin and slow down lending growth. Now let's come to the point number 3, rising competition. New player threaten market shares. So if you see in the last, let's say 6-7 years, you have Piramel, you have Godrej, you have Poonawalla, you have Jio. So there are a lot of corporate backed NBFCs that have come, and all are targeting the retail segment. So अगर हम competition देखें तो आने वाले दिनों में HDB के लिए कंपटीशन काफी ज्यादा बढ़ने वाला है. Now number 4 is RBI regulation. This is very important, and I want to spend some time on RBI regulation. Now, the current listing of HDB. Now this aligns with the RBI's listing requirement for upper layer NBFCs, because RBI ने 3-4 लेयर बना रखी है NBFC के अंदर. टॉप जो अपर लेयर है, जहाँ बजाज फाइनेंस एंड ऑल बड़ी NBFC आती हैं, उनके लिए एक लिस्टिंग रिक्वायरमेंट है. सो द IPO, दिस IPO is in response to RBI's directive, to list by September 2025, जो RBI ने एक डेडलाइन सेट कर. Now currently, HDFC Bank, which holds around 95% in HDB Financial, is diluting, a part of its holding. So, the post offer, the holding of HDB or HDFC will be around 74%. Again, this is very high. Now, there is a draft note of RBI, and this talks about bank and its group entity being prohibited from holding more than 30% equity capital in any single NBFC. So अगर tomorrow ये ड्राफ्ट गाइडलाइन फाइनल गाइडलाइन बन जाती है और आरबीआई वो इंसिस्ट करता है, सो हो सकता है काफी ज्यादा और डाइवेस्टमेंट बैंक को करना पड़ेगा आने वाले दिनों में. एंड ये भी हो सकता है कि दे मे सेल ए मेजर चंक टू वन सिंगल पार्टनर टू रिड्यूस होल्डिंग गोइंग फॉरवर्ड. एंड एक ऑप्शन ये भी है जो आरबीआई जनरली देता है कि भाई एक ग्लाइड पाथ और एक टाइम पीरियड दे सकता है, एक रिलैक्सेशन भी दे सकता है. नाउ द फिफ्थ एंड द लास्ट पॉइंट इज द रेगुलेटरी टाइटनिंग. नाउ इफ यू सी द एंटायर एनबीएफसी स्पेस टुडे, एनबीएफसीज आर रेगुलेटेड ऑलमोस्ट लाइक बैंक्स, एंड ये एक बहुत बड़ा फैक्टर है जो आजकल काफी एनबीएफसीज को अफेक्ट कर रहा है. देयर इज वन ऑन द लिमिट ऑन सीओ टेन्योर. यहाँ भी गणेशन साहब को काफी टाइम हो गया है, सो हो सकता है on the succession and other issues में RBI कोई advice करे इस NBFCs को. Again there is lot of regulation on compensation and incentive for the top management, and RBI keeps tightening the related party transaction, board governance and the capital adequacy rules. So जैसा आपने देखा HDB के जो financials हैं are much better than Jio. Jio is just starting. HDFC के पास 17 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है in building its business model. So in a way HDFC is inching towards the next Bajaj Finance. But the journey of HDB is not going to be easy because of the regulation and the competition that is coming from the corporate backed NBFC.
If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next one.